Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to That GD Show, which stands for Genevieve and Dave. It doesn't stand for That Goddamn Show, but if you want to think of it that way, you can. Genevieve's off tonight, as you see. That is not Genevieve on the other side of the screen here. She is much prettier than this guy. But please welcome my friend David C. Smalley to the show tonight, everyone.
David,
you hear that? You hear that applause?
Yeah. You play that applause for me? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have any of those fancy gadgets where they have the studio noise and stuff. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, man. It's been a while. It's been too long.
It has. Yeah. The last time I saw you was in Little Rock, Arkansas. Actually, North Little Rock, if we're totally accurate, right?
Wow, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, well over a couple.
I've been back to Little Rock, I think, since then.
Yeah, you sent me a picture of your with my friends Joe and Naomi Flynn. Gosh, I went blank for a minute.
You're right.
Naomi was a child in the church that I was an associate pastor of in Arkansas way back in the day. And she found me by seeing me on a show a couple of years ago, when we've become friends. We've seen them up in Eureka Springs. Hey, Greg Markowski, Super Chat champion, always the first one on here tonight, every night, every week. Thanks for the best show on the YouTubes. Wow. What can I say, David? Right?
I mean, I think you won. I think you just won.
I think I won.
It's great.
That's it. That's it for tonight, folks. See you next week. Yeah, but you and I've connected a long time ago. And you were one of the first shows that I went on, one of the first podcasts. You took a chance on me. You had no idea who I was. It was way before I was a big celebrity like I am now. I'm a big deal now. You were a big deal then. And
not anymore. We've traded places.
No,
I'm hoping to get some
yeah, right.
riding your coattails tonight here, Dave.
Yeah, you know that's bullshit. But seriously, Jack, way back in 2019, I think it was probably May of 2019, if I'm recalling correctly. I had just started doing the Dying Out Loud stuff and was going. Marie, my manager, was reaching out to shows like yours and saying, "Hey, you should have this guy on." And most of the shows were going, "Who the fuck is this guy? And why should I have him on?" And but you took a chance on me, and I've always appreciated that. I came out to the studio with your what's his name? He had two names. He had two. You were in Studio One in Hollywood.
Podcast One.
Yeah. Sorry.
Was it Emery?
Emery? Yes, Emery.
Yeah, Emery.
And we had the best time. We laughed. In fact, your producer in the sound room was going, "No, don't say that." No, yeah. He was. we were going completely off the rails. And Bevan was telling me tonight, we were having dinner, and she said, that was the funniest. I laughed that whole podcast. I laughed because Emery was just saying, he'll say anything.
He will. He'll intentionally go out there to try to make people uncomfortable. And he found out quick, like he could not make you uncomfortable, which was hilarious.
No. It was a riot. We must have talked for over 2 hours. It was just.
Yeah, it was good.
It was a blast. And so, that was one of the first podcasts I did, and we've been connected ever since. So you changed your podcast from Dogma Debate to David C. Smalley. Why?
Yeah. Vic Stenger I was supposed to do the voiceover for his. Actually, I was going to produce his audiobook, and he was going to fly in and record it.
Now tell us who that is.
Oh, Dr. Vic Stinger, author of God, the Failed Hypothesis,
Okay.
God in the Multiverse, God in the Folly of Faith. Think of him as, I'm not sure if he was a theoretical physicist or, no, he was a physicist of some subdivision, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
And just brilliant, really brilliant guy. And he was going to fly out to do his audiobook with me, and he was in Hawaii. He emailed me and said, taking a vacation with the wife. After Hawaii, I'll come straight to you and we'll knock this out. And he ended up dying in Hawaii.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so he told me he wasn't doing very well and he wanted to hurry up and get this done. So I bought the license for his audiobook from the publisher. I had everything ready to produce it, and it was clearly going to be his last project, and he died before we got a chance to do it. So I ended up recording the voiceover for him, and he was on my show before that. We were talking. That's how we connected, and he had listened to a few episodes of Dogma Debate, and he said, he tells me, like, while we were on air, he says, you shouldn't call this show Dogma Debate. He said, because you don't really debate these people. He said, you have really cordial discussions.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And I said, you know what? It just kind of well together. It sounded cute. Dogma Debate. Words were kind of close in spelling. It was easy to make a logo for it.
Yeah.
But he was right. I didn't really have these formal debates. I just opened it up for conversation. And then my publicist tells me I get to LA, I start the comedy thing and I start touring and doing stand-up, and I'm going out on auditions. And my publicist says one day in one of our meetings with my agent, she goes, there are people who know what Dogma Debate is and they don't know who you are. So if you're going to be promoting something, you should promote your name as the brand as opposed to a show that you're attached to. And I was like, well, maybe, I don't know that I want to be attached to this, So we went back and forth about it and finally just said, okay, let's do two things at the same time. Let's change the name of the show and also change the scope of the show. So there may be politics involved. There may be just interviews with famous people. There may be interviews with interesting people. It
opened you up to more than just the conversation about faith.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. So the branding all happened at the same time. So yeah,
well, it makes total sense.
It was kind of the easy shift. Yeah.
That makes good sense. Yeah. Got Anton Gomez here from Mexico with 60 Mexican dollars. Christmas is a difficult time of year. It really is. And I take this opportunity to just send out thoughts and prayers, or just thoughts, because Christmas can be very difficult for a lot of people, especially those in the deconstruction space who've maybe have problems with family members that you're not connected with anymore. So don't beat yourself up if you're having a hard time with Christmas. Just do like I do and just get through it. That's kind of my attitude about Christmas. Just get through it. It's a stressful, anxious time for a lot of people. It's really too bad. But it is. But you're right, Anton. It's a tough time. I hope you're doing okay, buddy. And we've said a super chat. Someone had a comment for you, especially David. Normalizing atheism, $4.99. Thank you. Hey, y'all, just want to say I just love my much older friend, David, and he puts the sexy in atheist. At least he did in me.
Okay.
So, okay. Any comment there, David C?
Yeah, I do have some comments on that. So there's this guy I found living behind a dumpster. He was feeding cats behind this dumpster, and I went back there to feed the cats. That's how we met. And I was like, you don't have to live like this, man. Well, I can help you out. And so he started doing all right for himself. Although shortly after we worked together, he just stopped responding to me. I don't know what happened. I've sent him messages on Skype. He won't respond. I don't know what's going on. I've tried to find him, tried to call him. He's
here tonight. So what can I say?
And then he shows up tonight to watch this after not responding to me for months. So I'm not. Maybe he's back behind the dumpster and he doesn't get good reception. You know,
well,
maybe
he must be doing okay because he just sent me $4.99 in a super chat. So
that's at least one can of tuna.
Oh my, I don't know if we want another whole backstory there. But I do want to get into more of your story.
Pasta Mike. That's Pasta Mike, by the way.
Pasta Mike. I wasn't exactly sure who that was.
That's who that is.
But I figured you guys have a long and sordid history. Let's take a call.
He really did ghost me, though. That's a true story. I haven't heard from him forever.
Well, I'll
maybe this will be our. You
know what? We pride ourselves in connecting people on this show, and that's maybe we're able to do that for you, David and Pasta Mike. Let's hear from Joe. Him in Michigan. Hey, Joe.
Hey, how you doing, Dave?
You're on with a pair of Davids here.
Which Dave? Which Dave? Right? Hey, I'm fanboying over here because David Warnock. I first heard you on David C. Smalley's Dogma Debate podcast, and been listening to both of you for a while. So, Merry Christmas and Happy Solstice to y'all.
Wait, can we say Merry Christmas again? Oh yeah, Donald J. Trump gave us permission.
I said Merry Christmas.
MYT. Christmas. Oh, I see. See what you did there. Yeah. Good to hear from you, Joe. Yeah, thanks for calling. What's on your mind? You've got a couple of questions, I think.
Yeah, I have two questions. First one is, David C. Smalley. You know, you do such a good job at respectfully disagreeing with people. And I guess whether it's Rappaport's rules or, you know, when you are accused of being disrespectful for disagreeing, I mean, what do you keep in mind when you walk into any kind of situation like that where you could be accused that way?
I mean, a lot of times just disagreeing with someone, they feel like it's an attack on who they are. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm kind of running out of give a dams about their feelings at this point because I tried so hard for so long to extend an olive branch and to talk kindly to people that I think have horrific views, to be honest. And there's one thing. It's one thing to be ignorant of facts, right? It's okay. I've often said, and you've probably heard me say this, that I believe they're a victim of bad ideas, right? And so I don't see it as a fight. I see it as a rescue mission. But I've come to realize here recently that willful ignorance is an act of hate. Okay. It's an act of aggression to intentionally stay ignorant and say, I don't need to know this and I don't want to know more. And I'm not going to look into this, but these are my views. If you're being told that your views are oppressive or hurtful to people or causing division or causing people to second guess themselves and causing parents to, challenge their kids' sexuality and hold them into a block. And if it's causing a lot of problems and you're hearing people say it, but you refuse to look inward, I'm letting people know that willful ignorance is an act of hate and it's an act of aggression. And so they often think that we are starting the argument by saying, hey, what you believe is bullshit. And that comes off as aggressive. But what they need to know is we already feel like the shot has been fired from their side, and what we are doing is responding to them, right? So I think laying the groundwork for that at the beginning of the conversation to let them know that the existence of their religion is offensive to start with. So whatever I say can't be near as bad as what their belief has done to our culture.
They're going to have a hard time. They're going to have go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's just changing the prescription on their glasses a little bit. That a lot of times people think, well, how could my religion, which is all about love, or whatever they see it as, right? That you're telling me I have bad breath or something, and so I think it's just it's very difficult. It's very difficult to not say.
I've said for a long time.
I guess David.
I've said for a long time.
Go ahead.
I want to add this to it. I've said for a long time, and I think this is one of the quotes that gets attributed to me out in the Twitterverse. I say, I don't hate the things you love about your religion. I hate the things you don't know are a part of it. You know, they
Right.
don't realize some of the stuff that is offensive because they just don't pay attention to that part. And again, it's the willful ignorance. They won't read their Bibles. They won't look into what the teachings actually result in, and they just hold tight to their little bubble, and they don't want to take their own inventory or really challenge their own view. And like I said, that's an act of aggression. So.
Well, and I think sometimes when you do run out of dams to give, sometimes it can jar people out too, being comfortable.
Yeah.
And I would imagine a lot of people come back weeks later, months later, even sometimes. You're planting a seed.
Yeah, my podcast is undergoing a shift right now, and people are about to start seeing a slightly different version of me and what I do because I'm just fed up.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
I'm tired of sitting across from someone who is justifying slavery and the killing of people for being gay and pretending that we're the same. We are not the same. One of us is clearly moral and the other is clearly amoral, and that needs to be addressed. And so again, I still think many of them are victims of bad ideas, but I'm tired of, and I wasn't pretending, but I'm tired of trying to force myself to believe that we are the same. We're not.
That's really a good point.
I appreciate what you're both doing, and I sorry if I cut you off. I just really have one short question here, and that is, when are you coming to Michigan to do some comedy? Because you're like never close to here. When's the last time you were in the Mitten State?
I think I went to Grand Rapids once. Here's the best thing for you to do, and anybody listening that wants me to come to your town, this is a real way to get me there. You can send a text message to a tour hotline. It'll come to me after you have to click a link and answer some questions. You can sign up for my texts, and I'll give you the number now if you want. It's 424-306-0798. 424-306-0798. Just text your city there. You'll get a link back. It'll ask you like 5 questions. And then when I'm coming, if enough people from your area send me a text, then the managers book me in clubs. We just sold out 2 shows in Fort Worth, Texas because of this. A bunch of people from Fort Worth said, come to Fort Worth. So we sold out 2 shows. So
can someone try to get that in the chat room? So get that number in the chat and somebody can follow up on that. But
yeah, I wrote it down too. I'll type it in the chat, and I'll get my comedy friends start texting David.
Let's do it. Love to come see you.
And I got to say, on that note, I saw you, David, in Little Rock. I came over to Little Rock to see you in a show, and I didn't know what to expect. You know, I didn't know, is he funny or not? I don't know. You know, but so there were a couple of, I don't know, 3 or 4, maybe 5 warm-up acts. And I got to tell you, bro, I don't know if you're friends with them, but they didn't do you any favors. They did not warm the room up. In fact, they may have chilled it a bit. And I'm sitting there going, oh shit, David, come. He's got it, and I'd seen you beforehand, and I'm sitting there waiting, and then I'm thinking, damn it, they're just killing the room. And you came out and you just crushed it, man. But you had to start from zero. I mean, they did not do you any favors. They did not.
So a lot of times, I don't even remember who it was, to be honest, but that was a long time ago. But a lot of times the clubs or the venues will just have local guys in the area.
I see. Yeah.
That are, open micers, or maybe they're comedians of their own right or whatever. And sometimes, if you see a comedian and they have a bad night or a bad show, it's not because they're a bad comic. Unfortunately, we live in this life of, the recent is reality, right? So whatever you see in that moment, you feel like that represents that person.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of times, there are so many factors that can go into a comic having a bad set or a bad night. So I don't know what was going on that night. I didn't really, normally I do watch and pay attention. I wasn't at that time because I think that venue we were at had a backstage area.
Yeah.
And the stage managers were talking to us and giving us instructions, and it was quite busy back there. So I wasn't really watching the other comics until
probably a good thing you didn't.
I usually I try to take the temperature of the room and then go out and address it, you know. But
well, the room was cold by the time you got up, but you warmed it up fast. You crushed it, man. I remember thinking, damn, he's good. And then we had cigars and drinks afterwards. It was a fun night.
Oh, it was a blast.
That was fun. So yeah, if you're watching, like Joe, you know, get some people together, get him out to do a show. You'll be pleased. I promise you.
And once we actually book it, I go on TikTok. I start going live streaming on TikTok, that's where I have the biggest audience. So I let my TikTok audience know I'm coming.
Yep.
And people usually show up to the shows. It's a great.
See,
audience.
you're a big deal. That's why you're a big deal, man.
Well, now that I'm on your show, people might.
Yeah, hopefully we can get you a boost and get you something going, because
that Warnock bump.
We're a big deal. But Joe, thanks for calling, man. It was good to hear from you.
Thank you, Joe.
And
you too. Thank you.
Appreciate it, buddy.
And I would say follow both of these guys on TikTok, because you guys are both talented on there. So, but thanks for both your honesty and your transparency, and I just Happy New Year.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year seasons, greetings, all the above. Appreciate you,
See
Joe.
you in February.
All righty, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Joe's a good guy. That you made some good points. I want to go back to what you were saying about an act of aggression when you're willfully ignorant. I see some folks in the chat going, "Whoa, hadn't thought of it that way," and I hadn't either. And I think you're dead on with that, because if you're opposed to learning and becoming informed on something because it's a deeply held belief, so to speak, then you're just saying, I don't care if it hurts people. You're either saying you don't care if it hurts people, or you don't believe that it really does. Right. Which do you think it is? Or can it be both?
You know, have you ever just been so sure you knew something you didn't look into it?
Oh yeah, 35 years as a Christian.
I mean, other than that,
well, that's a lot though.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of in the wheelhouse we're talking about. I want to take it outside of religion, and I mean,
okay,
like you're so you know somebody's in the house. Like, let's say, like,
okay,
me,
you hear something.
My daughter's home. I know she's home, so I don't bother coming out and making sure she's home. I just go walking down the hall talking to her, and I'm like, wait, what? Oh, she's gone. Like,
okay,
I didn't think to double check she existed in the home before I started speaking to her. I honestly think it's like that most of the time. I think that they're just
But once you find out she's not in the house, you don't keep talking to her.
Right.
That's the difference.
Well, here's the key component, right? I first discovered this idea, this thing that I just blurted out on your show. I first came across it talking to a guy about the history of the Confederate flag. Okay. He's going, it's just my heritage. It's just my heritage. And that's all he would say. No, I mean, that's my heritage. That's my heritage. Yeah, but do you know what it stands for? Nothing, man. It's, and I'm talking about the battle flag, the one that people call the Confederate flag. We know it's not.
Gotcha. Yeah.
We know what we're talking about. And I would say, yeah, but have you looked into what it represented? Have you read the Constitution of the Confederate States? Have you actually read what they say? The word, I think the word slave or slavery is in there about 11 times. And I think including the word Negro, and they're talking about how the Negro is less than the white man. And it's very clear why they were being built. And it wasn't about states' rights. It wasn't financial reasons. It was very clearly that the white man is superior to other people. That's why they were.
And it was given to them by God. That was a God-sanctioned belief.
Right. Right. And so I start asking this guy, have you read the Constitution of the Confederacy? I don't need to. That's not my business. I don't care about that. That's got nothing to do with me. No, you don't understand what the flag represents. No, I don't need to read it. I don't. And that's when I realized, I'm like, oh, you're plugging your ears and closing your eyes, wanting to hold on to a view that is actively harming other people. The view itself is harmful. You're holding on to it, and the only reason you're holding on to it is because you're remaining willfully ignorant of reality and the facts. And I'm like, and you wonder why people are pissed at you. You feel like you're being bullied. It's a response to your act of aggression. your willful ignorance is an act of hate. You're
Yeah.
intentionally remaining ignorant. If my daughter somehow, like, if I just always started speaking or whatever, while my daughter was talking, and I was always interrupting her, and she told me one day, Dad, when you do that, it really bothers me because I have this condition and I have this, and you're really bothering me. If I'm not going to look into that condition, I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. You're too sensitive. This is your problem. That is an act of aggression. I'm remaining ignorant on purpose because I don't want to change. That's a hateful act, and it's an act of aggression. So I no longer feel like I have to treat this with kid gloves, because I'm not hitting first, I'm hitting back. And that's
so what do you do with those people? How do you, I mean, are you saying there's basically no way to reach them as long as they're in that position? You just basically, so what do you do with them?
No, I think what I'm getting at is I'm just fed up with, like, I'm not going to continue to turn the other cheek.
Like being nice and being genteel and having a gentle conversation. You agree? Let's agree to disagree. That kind of thing.
Yeah, there is no agree to disagree in my blood anymore.
Yeah,
there's no. I'm not going to say, well, I guess there may be some sort of justification for slavery, because if God says so, that's up to you. No.
Yeah,
there is, and this, and by the way, this is all tied into the idea of objective morality versus subjective morality, right?
Right.
Christians like to claim they have objective morality because it comes from a lawgiver, and everybody who's not a Christian, or at least non-religious, we all have subjective morality because we do whatever we want. The opposite is actually true. Those of us with morality get our morality from basic facts of reality, from consequentialism, from weighing the consequences of the actions. And the difference is, the reason ours is more objective is because it applies whether or not Dave Warnock does it, David C. Smalley does it, or God does it. It can be wrong. It can be a shitty thing to do. It can be fucked up, right? But in their religion, in their belief, if a man kills someone unlawfully, it's murder. But if God kills someone, it's a good thing. And if God commands you to murder an infant, it becomes good because he said to do it. And now it's not even murder, it's a killing, because murder is unlawful. And if God said to do it, it's now legal. So stomping a child to death becomes, I'm specifically 1 Samuel 15:3, stomping infants to death, or stomping out the Amalekites and killing the nursing babies, becomes a good thing because God said it. There is nowhere in humanism for you to order the killing of an innocent person suddenly becomes good because of who said it, right? That's subjective, and that's the view they, right? So I argue that a humanist ethic based more on reality is far more objective than anything a religious person holds. Because if God decides one day to suddenly say, let's kill everyone who's left-handed, by definition, it becomes good because God commanded it. So that is the very definition of subjective morality. It's subject to however God is feeling in that moment. So they do not have objective morality. So they don't get to write the laws. They don't get to make our governance, because there is no real lawgiver that's consistent. And if you read the Bible, you'll see that. And them refusing to read the Bible is a willful act of ignorance, which is an act of aggression and an act of hate.
Yeah. So just an unwillingness to even open their minds a little bit to consider something else. Yeah. So we've got lines open if you want to call and talk to me or David or both. 217-375-9933. You'd think I'd have that memorized by now, but I don't. How long have you been doing this podcast? You grew up as an evangelical, correct? In Texas.
I did. So this podcast, or any podcast, because I actually had a podcast before the word existed. In 2003, I was the host of an internet radio show, and you could listen to archives later. And there were links you could go back because it recorded it and saved it on the internet. And it was a podcast, but the word didn't exist, and there was no such thing as an RSS feed until 2004. And so this version of my show was restarted in 2010.
That's Dogma Debate?
Dogma Debate, yeah, it started in 2010. And I think I started a blog called Dogma Debate in 2008, I think. And then it took about 2 years for it to become a podcast.
So walk me back. You grew up evangelical.
Yep.
When did you shed that jacket?
So
and how'd that come about?
I wrote a book called Baptized Atheist, and I detailed all of that. The audiobook is better. It's more updated if you want to go get the audiobook. But if you buy the paperback, all the profits go to American Atheists. But like I said, it's the audiobook is me reading along with my book and then going, oh wait, I want to add something to this, or I want to
that's cool. Update it on the spot. Updating.
I made some mistakes and I correct the mistakes. I don't really feel like this anymore. I feel like this now, and I kind of go back and forth.
Okay.
I kind of overstated Constantine's, role in some of the canonization and things. So just stuff like that. But the short version is, literally the moment I was baptized was the first time I ever really thought about it. Like, I don't know if they had just dunked me in the water and said, now you're a Christian, I'd have been like, all right, cool. But it was so formal, it was so, do you believe Jesus Christ died for your sins so that you may enter the kingdom of heaven? And I was just like,
how old were you?
15 or 16.
So that kind of jarred you. You're like, wait, what's going on here?
It was so. And he said he died so that you may enter the kingdom of heaven. And then I said yes, because I was supposed to.
What are you going to do, right? Yeah.
And then I go under the water, and I felt like I was under there forever. Like when my breathing paused, I just go, I'm thinking, why would killing the innocent pardon the guilty?
You're thinking of this while you're under the water?
Oh, the second I hit the water, I'm like, this is. I don't think I just said yes, but that doesn't make any sense. And then I come out of the water and I'm just like, I don't, like, literally the moment I hit the water, I think my Christianity had a fracture. I was going, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Why did we torture Jesus? If he's good, we torture him and we're the bad ones. So we get off by punishing him. Why is that the case? Why would a good, smart God set that up as the way the world is going to work? And more importantly, why haven't I thought about this before right now? Like,
so until then, you were just going along because your parents took you and it was the thing you did.
My parents never took me.
So how'd you get to church? Were you a Baptist?
I got to church because of a school function.
They get you in school.
They came to a football game and they called it fifth quarter. And they didn't want kids to go out and drinking and partying after football games. So they called us all back to the church when we were already separated from our parents.
And vulnerable.
We all went to church as part of fifth quarter. And then I went down and got saved, mostly because there was a really cute girl there.
Right. Yeah.
And so
pizza every Friday night. Yeah.
Of course, man. Pizza. Pizza and donuts and lots of Dr. Pepper in the South. Yeah, so it was kind of the peer pressure thing, and of course, I was young and impressionable and emotional and hormonal. I mean, I was 14, 15 years old, and going through a lot. And those pastors, those preachers are trained to give these these talks, and you feel it's almost like a magician, right? You feel like they're talking directly to you in that moment. And in a weird way, it's kind of what I do on stage as a stand-up comedian. I make it feels like this is for you. And I'm taking you on a journey, and I take left turns and have unexpected things happen. And then you laugh at what you thought wasn't going to happen, and it happens. And, preachers or I think preachers are better at that than stand-up comedians. They have a way of talking to you or talking to the crowd that feels like the rest of the room is disappearing, and you end up in this tunnel vision with you.
And then you add in some emotional music, and it's a slam dunk.
Absolutely. absolutely. So
Slam dunk.
I was taken in by that, and went down and, of course, confessed my sins, and then almost immediately was told to go to virginity camp.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
What
almost
is that?
immediately went to
They
virginity.
didn't call it that. No.
It was
No, they didn't. They
oh
couldn't
God,
have.
what was it? First love, I think.
Oh, I wish they would call it virginity camp. That
Me
is so
too.
precious. Yeah.
Yeah.
That needs to be a thing. That needs to be a thing.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
to go there, and I was thinking
Pledge your purity and to your future wife.
definitely purity was in the word. It was like first purity, something.
Yeah.
The whole idea
Yeah.
was to pledge to remain a virgin until you're married. And
Mhm.
so they separated the boys and the girls, of course.
Yeah.
Not realizing that they didn't separate us until after we got there. So we shared the van on the way over. That was a mistake on their part. We arrived smelling very different than we.
Yeah.
than we left our
Mixing those fragrances.
Yeah, well, I wasn't okay. And we got there, and then they separated us, and there's probably I want to say maybe 15 or 20 boys in our area.
Oh my God.
And it was like, let's be cool. Like, we don't have pews, we don't have chairs. It was like it looked like Mark Cuban had set it up. It was like bean bags and like blocks to sit on, and there was no real structure.
Cool vibe, yeah.
Cool vibes.
Really cool lighting, and
A pastor named Tim had his hat on backwards. Hey, bro, let's chat.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Let me rap to you, and then he was talking about how important it was, because once you have sex, the devil this, and once you have sex, demons this. And we were all just sitting there like, wow, this is really important. And I was thinking, well, I'm screwed because I've already had sex. So the demons are all up in me, right?
Yep.
And then I'm thinking, he's probably got something for it, right? Because I'm believing at this point. I'm still a believer, and I'm going, I just slowly raised my hand, and he goes, David. And I was like, what if I've already had sex?
You said that out loud?
I did.
Wow.
In front of the entire group. And then I hear about 7 or 8 other guys go, oh, me too. Yeah, me too. Sorry. Yeah, me too. Already did it. Yeah, me too. And like about half.
You started a movement.
Yeah, I did. And then the pastor's like, okay, all right. Well, you know what? Here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to embrace our second virginity, okay?
That's it. That's it. God can give it back to you.
Yeah, just kicked it right back into gear, and we had to then embrace our second virginity, which it didn't last very long.
But if you do it again, then you can have after third. How many virginities did you have, David? Do you want to confess on live TV tonight?
I'm sad to say I don't know.
Oh, well, you're not alone there, bro. So how long do you think your Christianity lasted? At what age do you think you kind of like, I don't believe this anymore?
I got really bad at Christianity almost instantly, because I and it was for a good reason. I was sent to door knock.
Oh God,
win souls, and I say in the book that I feel like I was given the jersey and pushed out on the field, and I didn't even know what sport I was playing. I had no idea what to say to these people, and I'm knocking on doors. And this one lady, she opens the door, and I say, I would like to talk to you about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I was just the opening act. You know what I mean? Like, if she would have walked outside and let's do it, I would have yelled out for Pastor Bill, and he would have.
Yeah, we need a closer. Need a closer over here.
Closer for sure. And I didn't even get, all I got was Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And she said, honey, you need Jesus, and slammed the door in my face.
Whoa.
And so I was expecting anyone who didn't want to talk to me about it to automatically be a heathen, an atheist, a Satan worshiper, someone on fire already, or eating their own cat, right? That's the type of person I imagined would not believe in Jesus. So for her to say, honey, you need Jesus, and then slam the door in my face, I'm standing there looking through this door going, what if she's right? Like, what if she's got the right version of Jesus on the other side of that door, and I'm out here talking people into the wrong Jesus?
Yeah.
Like, I better get my shit together. Like, there are two people who believe in Jesus that don't like each other. So
Yeah.
you're on my team, but you don't like me. Maybe you don't even see me as being on your team. That made me go, okay, hold on. Clearly, there are some confusing things in this book. I better read it so I can fix it and get to the bottom of all this. And so that launched my whole journey of like reading the Bible cover to cover, making notes, studying the passages, talking with theology professors. And I kind of document this process in Baptized Atheist. And
were you in college by then?
No. I didn't start college till I was about my mid-20s.
Oh, okay.
I was full on. I think I said the word atheist for the first time around like 19.
So it didn't stick. So you're one of those that were never really saved. You know, what they tell us deconverted Christians, you never really were a Christian.
Well,
you probably really weren't. You tried, but you weren't.
I played drums in the Christian ministry for a while.
Well, that counts. Yeah, that'll get you saved. Yeah.
Plenty of people passed out because of my drumming.
Okay. That was slain in the Spirit. Right.
Holy Ghost. Yeah. Yeah.
So it didn't really stick with you.
I have to say though, Dave, when I said I believed and I confessed, I did.
Yeah.
And I went down before I was crying. I was in tears that night. I went down at fifth quarter and confessed in front of my friends and the pastor and that really cute girl that I had done things unimaginable, like masturbation and looking at pornography. And I had been a terrible, terrible person. And I was so embarrassed. And I felt saved. There was even like a feet washing ceremony with the pastor, like making yourself be vulnerable. And I went through all that stuff and honestly felt like I was saved. I really did. And my mom talks about me being, I think, like 11 years old at the Wax Museum. They had a whole exhibit around Easter, like doing wax figures of Jesus being crucified. And lovely. I was in tears, like, watching this horrible treatment of my Lord and Savior. So I really, really believed it. Like, I really thought I was going to save the world by clearing up this confusion. And I wanted to go back to that woman's house and be like, I think I got this figured out. In fact, throughout high school, I was the drummer for a gospel choir that released an album. My face is on the back of a gospel album out there somewhere. As
playing drums, the drummer. Yeah. Well,
so I was all in, man.
That's the thing. People say when people say you never really were a Christian, I agree with them. I say you're right, because there's no such thing. There are people who think that they believe in a God that saves them, but Jesus never saved anybody. Jesus never changed anybody's life. There are people who identify by the label Christian, but there's never been any born again experience. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think there's any conversion thing that happens. We might think like you did. I did too, for years, decades. I believed that I was changed by God. But if we look at the actual facts in the churches today, there are just as many people in the churches doing shit as there are outside the churches, maybe more. Nobody's being changed.
So I would disagree with you that there are no Christians. I don't think that being changed by Jesus is a requirement to be a Christian. I think
what's a Christian then?
A person who believes in or follows the teachings of Jesus Christ. So someone can change.
Technically, yeah.
So they exist. They change themselves, or
that's my point. My point is nobody's really born again. Nobody is there. There's no Holy Spirit that comes in someone's heart and changes them into some different kind of person. You're right. They change themselves by thinking a certain thing has happened to them. And that's exactly my point. So maybe I'm not saying it the right way, but there's no spiritual transformation that's happening.
I started writing another book, and then it got canned, and I could go into the reasons why. It's actually Donald Trump's fault.
Everything is.
Yeah. But originally the working title of the book was I'm an Atheist and You Are Too. And then in parentheses it was, and I can prove it. And
Mm-hmm.
the idea was, you only believe in like 13% of your God. When I actually start asking you questions deeper about your alleged God, you're not gonna believe that this God exists. And so you've created the God you worship, is the whole concept of the book.
Right.
And the publisher, I went back and forth with the publisher, and they were like, yeah, but we need like, 10 reasons, 5 reasons, blah, blah, blah. Like that was hot at the time. It's got to have a number. And this was late 2015. And he's like, he proposed a title like 13 Reasons You Don't Really Believe in God, or something like that. And I noticed as I was writing the book, it was getting more political. I was getting more into politics because that was the influence, because the Trump stuff was ramping up. So I ended up calling the book 12 Reasons You'd Never Vote for God. And it's a really cool concept that I still like. That is, if you take a politician and run them through the checks, they either pass or fail. If they've murdered people, or if they've done that, you don't allow them to be in office. At least up until that point, we hadn't. And we basically, the idea was, you worship something you wouldn't vote for.
Mm-hmm.
Like if God was a human being and had that track record, had killed that many people, had created a torture chamber, had told people to kill gay people, had thrown people, into the pit of hell or into fire pits or whatever, and all of these terrible things that God did throughout.
Well, that used to be a litmus test for who you wouldn't vote for, but post-Trump, I'm not so sure.
Right. Well, that's why I say it was his fault. So the night of the election, and my publicist, my agent, sorry, not my publicist. Did I say publicist earlier?
Yeah, you did.
Publisher. Maybe
your agent's probably watching this and really mad now.
So my the agent, the literary agent, had been working with the publisher, and he was strict Monday through Friday, like 8 to 5. Like, he would not answer calls on Saturday, would not respond to emails until Monday morning. He called me around midnight, the night of the election, and he goes, "You were wrong. They will vote for
yeah. And there goes that book."
He literally said that, and that Trump getting elected shot that book down, because I'm like, shit, millions of people did vote for God.
We underestimated the so much. We underestimated so much with Trump and the evangelical support of him, all of that. I was already out of my faith by then, but I wonder what that would have done to me if I'd still been an evangelical. I'll never know. But
man, I can't imagine what, like, when I've talked to people that are in that mindset, that are still evangelical and Trump people, they're to the point now where they just have meltdowns. The cognitive dissonance is eating away at their brain matter. I mean, it has to. They can't make sense either way. They take any question as a fight,
an attack. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So angry. I mean, you can't hardly talk to them about anything. And then it's, oh my God, you're so obsessed with this man. Let it go already. And then they go on the attack. Or it becomes whataboutisms. But Biden's sleepy, but Biden this, but Hunter Biden.
What about the laptop? Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
But her emails, it's
emails, Hillary, Benghazi. I mean, they've got a bucket of keywords, but they cannot defend what this man has done, And just today they announced they are referring him for criminal charges. So do you think he'll ever actually spend any time behind bars?
Not a day. Not a day.
If he does, he'll just get pardoned by President DeSantis.
Well, honestly, most of the time people with a lot of money and connections don't ever go to jail. Right. You got to be really, really over the top, which he might be, but I don't know. I'm really hoping he'll get off the landscape at some point.
I think if it ends up being DeSantis and Biden, I think DeSantis wins the election, and I think he'll pardon Trump anyway.
I don't know. Trump's coming after him pretty hard. Yeah. They're not buddies anymore.
But I think DeSantis knows that he'll win a lot of support if he does that.
Yeah, that's true too. So back to your story. So you suck at Christianity. Mm-hmm. You failed at that.
Terrible.
You're going through college in your mid-20s. When did you start wanting to speak up about this stuff and have a podcast and have these conversations with Christians? Why did that become a thing for you? Because a lot of people, when they, especially at a young age, they okay, God's not really real. Oh, well, I'm going to go live my life and get a career and forget this God stuff. Why did you not do that? What was it about this that drew you into it?
God, that is such an interesting. I've never been asked that question, Dave.
That's what makes this show special.
You're amazing. This is the best show on YouTube.
I've heard that.
Wow. You know, I don't really know why I cared enough. I'll build it this way. You're familiar with Frank Zindler?
Mm-mm.
So he's one of the board members of American Atheists. Brilliant man, just absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend everyone look up Frank Zindler.
Okay.
He was leading the American Atheist Press, which was the publisher for American Atheist magazine, started by Madalyn Murray O'Hair.
Yeah.
He was one of Madalyn's, he was like Madalyn's right-hand man. So Frank did a radio debate, because Frank is a geologist. He did a radio debate with a Christian geologist. So you have an atheist geologist, Christian geologist, and they were arguing about Noah's Ark and this global flood.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to hear the debate, but through my research, at some point, I came across a transcript of the debate. And I'm just reading. This is the first thing I ever found on the internet that finally made sense. And he was talking about the pH balance of the water, would have alluded to the point if that much rain had fallen, the salinity in our oceans would have killed much of the sea life as well. And the fact that the Bible says that water dripped off the earth, it doesn't make any sense that water could drip off of an earth with gravity.
No, none of it makes any sense.
Right. And so he was trying to talk sense into this Christian geologist, and I was just having light bulb after light bulb after light bulb go off. And I reached out to him and said, I do graphics and design and art. I would love to work with you in some way. And he brought me on as the design editor for American Atheist magazine almost instantly.
Cool. And back when was that? About how far back are we talking?
About 2009, 2008, right around 2008-ish, where I started the blog. And I had also been, this is where I don't know the answer to your question. I started the blog. It was called Dogma Debate. And the idea, I think, was I wanted to be converted. I wanted to be saved. I wanted none of this made sense to me, and I'd been fighting it for about 10 or 12 years, trying to believe, but it all just seemed like nonsense. And so I have a notepad somewhere where I was coming up with names for the blog, and it was Convert Me, Debate Me, Change My Mind was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Dogma Debate ended up being what I landed on. But the idea was, make me believe the way you believe. I truly want to know how the two of us can live in the same culture but have completely different viewpoints on this very big issue. And I'll pause there to say my entire life I've been inquisitive.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know why. I took toys apart to see how they worked, and then once I knew how they worked, the magic was gone, and I would just leave them in pieces.
Throw them away, right?
Yes. My parents would intentionally buy me stuff that was either impossible to take apart or was already in pieces for me to build it. Because if I remember pulling back the car and then it took off. And I remember being very, very little. I was probably 4, close to 5. And I remember going, there's not a guy in there driving it. So something's making it move.
4 years old.
I pull it back. What's going on? And then that little car was in 1,000 pieces in my room. And I was like, oh, it's this mechanism when you pull back and it clicks. And then you're kind of like stretching a rubber band. And that's why.
Wow.
And then I was like a little kid trying to figure stuff out. And it's not that I wanted to build. It's not that I wanted to be an engineer. I didn't like not knowing. Like I wanted to get to the bottom of everything. And so I would hear arguments among my family. Like my mom and my sister would be arguing about how far the sun is away from Earth. Mm-hmm. And they'd be yelling at each other. And I'm like, there's an answer to this. We're reason to fight about it. And I would climb up on the shelf and get these encyclopedias we had from like the 60s.
Before the internet, right?
Yeah, and I'm pulling encyclopedias down. I can't even read very well, but I would go to where the planets are, and I'm like, does it say it here? And they would both yell at me for trying to solve the problem. They would both attack me because they were both wrong. It's 93 million miles, and I couldn't say that, but I saw a bunch of zeros, and I'm like, I think this is the answer.
Oh my God,
And
that's funny.
They kind of bullied me. They called me Encyclopedia Boy.
Really?
They would mock me for trying to always find the answers in encyclopedias, and I'm like, okay. I mean,
so your inability to believe is really more about you just could never make it make sense. You could never make it. You couldn't.
Like, I remember questioning the Easter Bunny. I remember questioning how Santa Claus could, like, I remember going to my mom because we moved out. My parents got divorced when I was 5, and my mom and I and my sister moved into a trailer park in Texas. And I remember we didn't have a fireplace, and I was like, well, that's how Santa Claus always came, was the chimney. So I remember
we're not getting any presents, right?
Asking my mom. Yeah, I remember me asking my mom, like, how's Santa Claus going to get in here with no fireplace? And she just goes, oh, the Christmas mouse. I was like, what?
Oh my God.
Mouse opens the door. I'm like, a mouse can't open a door. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like 5 or 6 arguing with my mom, and I'm thinking,
something's up here.
Like, bullshit,
Something's up.
Money. And so finally, after I asked enough questions, and I was really young, Dave. I think I was around 7, maybe 8. And I called her on the bullshit of Santa and Easter Bunny, and she goes, you're right. I'm tired of lying to you. There is no Santa. There is no Easter Bunny. She just told me all at once. And I immediately go, oh, and no more Jesus, right? And she was like, no, Jesus is real. And I'm
like,
real.
You're real. Oh my God.
Yeah. I just always wanted to know stuff, man. So I think in my mid to late 20s, I was really just still trying to figure out why people believe. Also, in college, I did study psychology, and I was fascinated with how the mind works. The emphasis was applied behavioral analysis, and my minor was world religion. So I was fascinated by how people think,
why they believe, right?
Why they believe, and how many different religions there are, but they're all convinced that they're the only correct one.
Yeah.
And that was just fascinating to me. So all of that kind of came together, of course, with joining with American Atheists as the editor. I eventually became the editor of the magazine, not just design editor, but full editor for a while. And at 29, I think I was the youngest editor to ever take the position. And all of that together just made me go, you know what? I want to know why people still believe this stuff. So I started the blog. The blog turned into the podcast. Yeah.
And your podcast, I've heard from many people, and I think I share that sentiment. Your podcast, Dogma Debate, became known as very cordial conversations between an atheist and a theist. That's what you always tried to do for the most part, right?
Yep. Yeah, for the most part. And what I'm about to do is go back and visit those early episodes and tell you what I was really thinking. So I'm going to replay it, and then what you're going to hear is my inner monologue of what was going on in my head.
That's the shift you're talking about.
That's the shift, yeah. So what I'm doing is, it's not that I was pretending, it's that I thought I would have a thought, and then I would go, it wouldn't be very productive to say that out loud. Let me just curb that and ask a question instead. But inside, people were screaming at their phones or their speakers or whatever. And trust me, on the inside, I was doing the same thing. So I'm taking the step from comedy, and I'm going to kind of spice up this new version of the podcast.
How did you get the theists to come on your show? I guess they trusted you.
Yeah, they won't anymore.
Oh, because they realize, okay. Why not? Why not?
They just stopped coming on. I think that they just don't want to be challenged like that anymore. And when you listen to my show and you hear believer after believer after believer start off with so much arrogance, you're going to bend your knee, you're going to bow your head before you watch this, I'm going to convince you. And then an hour in, and they're going, but what? Well, the reason so gay people, slavery. And their views start to struggle to make sense because of the line of questioning. I could see believers after 12 years of this going, yeah, I don't want to go on there and sound like that. You know, I don't want to go on and sound hateful or misguided or like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about or have to do mental gymnastics in front of people. And I've had people flat out tell me after the show was over, oh my God, you rattled me, man. I don't think I believe any of this shit anymore. But they're Christians and they're out there doing their Christian things still to this day after telling me on the phone right when we stopped recording that they don't really believe what they're saying. And I'm like, how you can live with yourself.
Yeah,
And
that's so dishonest.
yeah, of course it is.
Bevan's asking in the chat, how can people find the old episodes of Dogwood Debate? She can't find anything beyond March 2021.
Right. It's patreon.com/David C. Smalley. Gotcha. Everything is on Patreon.
Okay. Patreon.com/David C. Smalley. Gotcha.
Yep.
That's what's curious about that to me is I do a bit of hosting on shows like Atheist Experience and stuff where, you know, the Christians call in and we have these conversations. And I don't know. Why do you think they keep calling in when they just get eviscerated with their shallow and nonsensical arguments? Because I don't understand it. Do they just like to hear themselves on a YouTube show?
I think that willful ignorance is an act of hate.
I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, that's what's driving them. It's and unfortunately, willful ignorance breeds arrogance.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
If you think you don't need any more information, imagine you got all the info. You know, and
you're gonna educate these poor YouTube hosts that just haven't heard it quite the right way yet.
Yep.
And I think a lot of them think they're not going to convince me or you on the air, but they're going to convince the people who are watching.
You know, it's funny. I've never been told to read the Bible by someone who's read it.
Yeah, that's true.
The ones
you're told to read the Bible by those who really haven't. Yeah.
Because what they think reading the Bible is are those 9 passages the pastor pointed out last week that felt so good to their heart. And that's what they think you're against. And then I have to go, oh, no, that stuff's great. Doesn't that feel good? That's wonderful. Yeah. Helping the poor and loving each other. Sure. I'm all about that stuff. When I say I don't believe, it's not that I don't believe in helping people and loving people. But let me tell you about this part. Did you know about this woman being turned into a pillar of salt for turning around? How you feel about that? Do you know about these men being raped in Sodom and Gomorrah? Do you know about
him offering his daughters to him so that they
would
come in and rape the angels? Like that's a thing,
right? Or the Michealites, just pillaging an entire village and then keeping the young girls for themselves and killing the little boys because they can't have sex with them. Do you know about that stuff? And it's always, oh, context, oh, interpretation, oh, this, and the backpedaling begins. Yeah, you haven't read it, but you told me to read it. Let's read it together. You know, that's what I try to do on the show did on the show was ask a line of questions.
Yeah,
not to elicit any sort of actual answer out of them, but to prove to them that they've never heard themselves say this shit out loud. E.M. Forrester said, how do I know what I think until I see what I say? And a lot of times they've just never thought about it before. So they feel this confidence and this arrogance, like they're about to crush it. And then when they hear themselves talking, they start realizing in the moment that they're failing to make sense. And they either
double down or back down.
Or they double down. Exactly. I was just saying it backwards. And a lot of times when they double down, it becomes anger. But yeah, they're angry at themselves for failing to make sense. And then that comes out as an ad hominem attack. And, you know, it manifests itself in different ways. But I think that's the answer to your question. I think they honestly think they've got the answers until they hear themselves failing to have some.
Yeah. And you're hope against hope that they'll leave the show and go home and reconsider some of their positions.
Well, that's why I've said for years that these are marathons. You're not gonna. In most cases, I've only done it one time in the history of my show that a conversion happened during a single conversation.
I remember hearing that one. Yeah,
one time. It was the Palestinian Christian. Everyone else, it's been weeks or. Well, wait a minute. That guy that happened. You talking about the one recently?
No, this is like a year ago. I can't remember. I remember I was somewhere traveling and I was listening to your show, and
pandemic.
You were really excited about it. Yeah, I can't remember.
So this one just happened not too long ago. It was one conversation with him, but he took about 3 or 4 weeks to get back to me and say,
I think that's the one that's the one.
So it was technically one conversation, but he, I had to make myself be a safe space for him to come back and go, yeah, this part doesn't really make sense to me. And if I had just bulldozed him the whole time, he would have just put his walls up, So
yeah, no.
Look, let me just be clear about this. I'm talking about changing the focus. It's not that I think that job isn't out there. I wish somebody else would do it. Like I'm ready to hand over the reins to someone who's willing to sit and talk with these people. I'm just not that guy anymore. I'm just fed up.
Yeah, I'm not the guy because, first of all, I don't have a lot of time left. But secondly, I don't have the patience for those conversations. I know that I agree with you. There's a need for it. And I'm aware of so many people who've told me that they've watched shows like yours and others, and it's made them rethink their positions. It's made them question things, and it's led to their deconversion, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, my idea for pushing this new format is going to be, you're going to hear me kind of have this inner monologue and be a little frustrated and maybe have a little fun with the ideas and maybe do a little roasting here and there. So you're going to get a little bit of the comedy flavor, but you're also going to know that conversation does exist if you want to go sign up on Patreon and listen.
Yeah. No, I think so it'd be helpful.
In a way, you can get your therapy out of, this is a ridiculous viewpoint. But if you actually want to talk to that person in your life, you can go listen to the real episode and without my inner monologue and actually get something out of how to have the conversation with
right
my Socratic questioning method.
No, that's good information. I see a question in the chat. I'm not sure if I'm clear on it. Maybe you are Cowboy 1000. If I'm not clear on that, maybe you could call in and clarify. But who would David Smalley recommend reading on doubting the resurrection story?
Oh, yeah. So they're talking about like mythicism, probably.
Gotcha.
Or doubting the resurrection story. I've always recommended David Fitzgerald. And the reason why, people who are, and I love David to death, so I don't think he would be offended at me saying this. There are people who are have more credits than David Fitzgerald. There are people who have higher degrees than David Fitzgerald. I'm not saying David Fitzgerald is the top scholar on this issue. I'm saying the way he writes it is so easy to understand. He makes it fun. He makes it funny. It doesn't feel like work. Like when I read Frank Zindler's stuff, for example, Frank is a heavy, brilliant, like his writing is heavy. He's brilliant, but it's hard to get through it because it's so intense. And Frank writes so high above my education level. It's incredible. People who are really into academia, they'll love Frank. David is more of a, any of us can pick up David Fitzgerald's book and learn something from it. And David cites the scholars, and David will tell you he's not a scholar or he's not a theologian. He's a researcher. And so,
excuse me,
the way he does his writing, I think is the best put together, the most entertaining. You'll have more fun reading his books than anyone else. So I recommend Jesus Mything in Action, MYTH, Mything in Action.
Excuse me.
And 10 Christian Myths that show Jesus never existed at all by David Fitzgerald. Both of those books are really good.
Do you agree with that position that there never was a guy named Jesus?
I think there were probably 50 Jesuses.
Like it was the common name.
It was just a guy named Yeshua, claiming to have powers. I mean, look, I just don't know. And honestly, that's David's point.
Yeah.
It's his whole purpose is he says he wants you to be a militant agnostic about the resurrection of Jesus or about the existence of Jesus. I don't know, and neither do you.
That's a great point. I think we can argue about it all day, and we can cite the so-and-so expert that we like and say, well, they believe he did, and well, they believe he didn't.
So think about 200 years from now, if there were no videos or evidence of, say, Elon Musk, and people were passing down stories of this character and how crazy it sounds that he would do these outlandish things and say these outlandish things, but he was the richest man in the world, but made some of the worst business deals ever, and all this, crazy stories. And then over time,
bought Twitter, then killed it. Yeah,
people add things to it, and they embellish and they lie, and then some think he's mystical and add some magic powers to it, and then some are very realistic and are still lying about some things he did and said and where he was born. And then after 400 or 500 years or 1,000 years of these stories get passed down, someone go, do you think Elon really existed? Well, in some aspect, probably. There's probably a true version of him out there, but there are several people named Elon. There are several people that are very, very rich. Maybe he's the combination of 30 or 40 different people who have been deified over time. I mean, so the question of did Jesus exist? I mean, look, David breaks down throughout the Synoptic Gospels, there are 4 different versions of Jesus told. Like one has him as a very human Jesus. One has him as God incarnate.
Well, they were writing to different audiences, David. You know that.
Well, they were actually the case that Fitzgerald makes, which I think is pretty convincing, is that they were writing fiction and they were improving upon each other's story.
Yeah.
And being a guy who I'm often in writers' rooms, improving on fiction and writing a television show or a movie or coming up with ideas. People will take an idea and then embellish it and then embellish it and then embellish it. And then that spawns another idea. And then someone goes, oh, that's getting too crazy. And we back it down. And you're just constantly workshopping ideas. When you read the actual 4 Gospels, and you know that Matthew had access to Mark. Mark was the first one that was written. And then look at how much of it is actually copied over. It's like 60 or 80%. It's some really high number.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
And Fitzgerald lists all this, and he shows the parts that are word for word copied. And he's like, but if you notice, Matthew makes this improvement and changes this and changes this. Mark ends on a cliffhanger. The boulder is rolled back from the tomb and it's empty. Dun, 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 and it's empty. It ends with it's a cliffhanger. It's just an empty tomb. It's like he was writing fiction, and then Matthew was like, I'm going to put a button on this, and I'm going to make him come back, and I'm going to have this character appear before people, and then 500 zombies come out of the ground. I mean,
and then in John, he's a magic man doing all kinds of magic by then.
So, I mean, if you think about it from the perspective of people writing fiction in ancient history, it looks like revisions of the same story with different authors thinking they're more talented than previous.
Yeah.
So it's
I've always said that the whole Jesus story is, I mean, if God really was entrusting the most important message to humankind through this man named Jesus and what he said and did, he came at a time when most of the world was illiterate. No one was taking notes. No one wrote anything down. There were no video cameras to record anything. There were no audio cassettes. There was nothing. We have no information. And yet it's the most important message in the history of humankind. God did a really, really shitty job of getting that message out because we're still arguing about it today.
And repeatedly told us that all men are sinners, but we're supposed to trust those fallible sinners with God's perfect word.
Yeah.
You gave us a broken, shitty pencil, and told us to write the history of the world with it.
Right. Yeah. It's a mess.
And that takes us back to divine hiddenness and the problem of evil and all the why would you make this so damn confusing?
Yeah.
And then base my eternity on whether or not I believe the bullshit. and it's just a race to perfection before I die. And I hope
and you go to hell if you don't believe it.
Yeah.
As a capper.
How about maybe go fuck yourself?
Yeah, that's what I say. So now you're in LA, you're out there, you're doing podcasts out in the fancy studios in Hollywood. You're a big deal. Your podcast blows up. You're probably one of the biggest out there. I don't know. And then you get into acting and comedy and comedy is the word I'm looking for here. How did that transition?
I'm being asked right now to come to the Comedy Store, like literally right now, to go down there and go on stage. I just texted them. I'm live on the air right now. I'll come out in just a minute.
Tell them how far away are you from there?
About 14 minutes.
And they just want you to come in and do a set?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go in a minute. Not yet. But yeah, we won't linger long because I know you're working, man. So how did you get into acting and comedy? How'd that transition happen real quick? I'm curious. I don't know this story.
So when I first got here,
when was that, by the way?
6 years ago. January 2017, I think. 18.
Oh, okay.
22. So it's about to be 6 years. Yeah, I told him I'm coming in just a minute.
Yeah.
We did a podcast launch party, like an LA launch party. Like David has moved to LA, come out for a live comedy show that's like kind of like a celebration launch party at the Comedy Store. And we sold out in 4 hours.
Nice.
And I show up that night. People thought they were coming to see a podcast. And I booked a bunch of stand-up comedians to make fun of religion.
Oh.
and they had a blast. And the booker for the Comedy Store walks up to me and she goes, "Hi, I'm the booker. No offense. Who the hell are you?" And I was like, "Oh, none taken. I'm nobody. Like literally, especially in this world. I just have a podcast and I'm just getting started in comedy. I did a little bit of comedy at the Reason Rally in 2016. Other than that, I've done a couple little things here and there, but this is my real first shot at really doing comedy clubs." So she pulls me aside. She talks to me for a minute. She's like, "What's your history? What's your experience?" I told her, I was like, "I've been traveling the country for 12 years giving talks, 45-minute talks. I always made them funny, but the point wasn't comedy. I always wrote jokes into it. I always had a good time. I had stage presence. Before that, I was in a band. I was a lead singer. I mean, I've been a performer my entire life." I was like, "But yeah, so I'm just dropping the PowerPoint presentation and talking directly into the mic." And she goes, "Do you want to do another one next month?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And so we did another one the next month and we sold out in 24 hours. And she comes to me that night and says, "How about you do this monthly here at the Comedy Store?" So for the first 3 or 4 years, right before the pandemic shut us down, I had a monthly show at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard, and I got to work out my material and get better at writing. And it wasn't just the stage time. It was because you're at the Comedy Store in Hollywood, you're going up before Theo Vaughn and Kevin Hart and Chris Rock. I mean,
damn, good connections. Yeah.
It's not a connection. It's about watching the best in the world go up and work out and try stuff and you watch them fail, and then they come back and do it the very next night slightly different, and they get a huge laugh and an applause break, and you're like, oh, it's such a subtle change. I mean, you're watching the best people in the world work out, and you're just going to be better by proxy. I mean, you're just, that stuff oozes off of them, and you just get better. And so I did that for a while. Now my show's at the Hollywood Improv. I have a monthly show there. It's called Dirty Church. And we do our dirtiest material. My next show is December 26th, of course, the day after Christmas. And it's in the main room. I've got Craig Robinson from The Office and Hot Tub Time Machine. I've got Jamie Kennedy, Ben Glebe, Eric Griffin from Workaholics.
Nice.
It's amazing lineup. I mean, people are blown away that Craig Robinson's going to be there. I mean, he's just phenomenal. And so, yeah, that comedy world took me into acting. I started acting classes, acting ended up taking me to the Groundlings, the improv school where Will Ferrell went, and Melissa McCarthy, and all these amazing, all the way back to Pee Wee Herman. I mean, you could just trace back, half of the SNL cast is from there. And so I did acting, and then I started being booked on shows, small movies, shorts. Ended up doing a stint on a Nickelodeon TV show as a bad guy. And then I just booked my first movie role. We went to Denver and filmed for a couple of weeks.
Can you tell us what that is?
I can tell you the name of it.
Okay.
I've never said it publicly.
Well, there are 50,000 people watching this right now, so
here's what I'll do. I'll tell you the name of it so that when it does come out, you'll remember it. It's called. God, I hope I don't get in trouble for this.
Well, you don't have to. I mean,
okay.
Like who's the big star?
Cut me out of the film. I mean, it's called The Ascendants.
Oh, okay.
There it is. It's out there in the world. The Ascendants. It's a psychological thriller.
When will that be out?
I don't know. It's not going to be as long as most movies take because these guys are crushing the editing process already. So, here's what I can tell you. Your audience and my audience will love the concept.
Yeah. Okay.
The Ascendants.
I love it.
That's all you get, Dave.
That's all I want. I don't want much.
You get me sued.
Well, I don't think any of your people are going to be watching this show, but if they do, I'll tell them I drug it out of him by threat and coercion.
I was at a restaurant with the director, just the two of us. We're having drinks. The waiter walks up and asks one question about the movie, and the director tells him,
"Uh-oh. Did we lose David at the end?
You signed the NDA, not me." And then
oh my God.
I can tell him everything. It was funny, and I've made fun of the director for that in the past, but he's like, what's he gonna do?
Yeah, what are they gonna do?
So no, I mean, look, I'll tell you this. Everyone follow me on social media, TikTok especially, David C. Smalley. Follow me on Twitter, David C. Smalley, Instagram, David C. Smalley. If you sign up for that, you're on my text list. When this movie comes out, you're going to see it. I'm going to blast it everywhere.
Cool.
God, I'm sorry.
I'll look forward to it. That's okay. I was going to say before I let you go, how does everyone find you? So just look for David C. Smalley on all the platforms, right?
That's it.
And as long as Twitter exists, we'll find you there.
And text me as well. I'm going to say the phone number one more time for anybody that wants to text to see me in person to do stand-up comedy. It's 424-306-0798. 424-306-0798.
Yeah, and Secular Radio just put that in the chat. So get a group of people together and bring David out. You'll love it. He'll make you laugh and make you think, and that's all good stuff.
That's right.
Oh, Lily Pad LA, $49.99 coming in late. How you doing? Thank you for that.
LA.
Must be one of your neighbors out there in LA.
Must be. Let's roll down to the Comedy Store, Lily Pad.
So you're going from here to there, right? You're going to the Comedy Store right now.
It may be too late. We're
gonna let you go right now.
I'm gonna find out if I can still get up. I don't know.
Lily Pad, thank you so much for that. And Bevan and I were just asking the other night. We don't know who you are. Send us an email. We'd like to connect with you. We appreciate your support for the show. And David, my friend, come to the American Atheist Conference next year in Phoenix. We're going to be there. That's close to you. Come see us. We'd love to hang out again and have a cigar.
I have not been to a conference in a very long time, Dave.
Time to go.
It's a long conversation we need to have. We will.
About it. Because I'm running out of time, dude.
All right, buddy.
All right, man. Love you.
Love you too.
Take care. That's our show for tonight, folks. Thanks for tuning in.